My youth message today will focus on how to approach suffering by obeying to God. There are many instances where we feel suffering in life and being unfair on a weekly basis. However, we can see that this can be present in the life of many people in the Bible, especially Joseph. Joseph's brothers sold him after they tried to kill him, and as Joseph was living a life without his parents and siblings, he decided to accept his sufferings. We can see that although God never directly communicated with Joseph, it says in Genesis 39, verse 2, "The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a prosperous man, and he was in the house of the Egyptian master." In this instance, we can see that Joseph may have been thinking, "Is God still with me?" or "Why may this be happening to me?" But he never forgot that God is always with us, and even in God's silence, His presence is there, as He turns our suffering for His own good for us. And we have to realize that although we may feel abandoned at God at times, as long as we are living according to His purpose, He is not gone, but rather silent to test us. When doing right for God, we may have to take a stand against society, which may bring suffering as well. In the New Testament, the Jewish authorities arrested the apostles for their freedom to preach the gospel as they were sharing the good news of Christ. When facing society or especially authority, we may feel more than likely to cave into that to relieve our stress or any trouble that may come. But Peter, in this instance, in Acts 5, chapter 5, verse 29 says, "We must obey God rather than the human beings." And from this, God delivered them from the trouble in Acts chapter 5, verses 30 and 39, when it says, "If the plan or this undertaking is from man, it will fail. But if it is of God, you will not be able to overthrow them, for you are opposing God by opposing them." Here we can see that they were suffering for doing what is right, and were blessed by getting out of jail. We must remind ourselves to obey God over man's law, even when our faith is being tested. As long as we obey God, any consequence or suffering under God's plan is planned and should be according to what is dictated for our life. So there is nothing to worry about, and neither can we see that this is true when looking at Daniel's obedience in his life. Even when no one was looking, he obeyed God's command. When Daniel declined the king's feast for the unclean food, for it was against God's law, but others would have easily taken it. If we're really obeying God in the dark or when we're alone, that is what really counts in His eyes. Whatever we may portray in the light or in front of everyone only counts for what other people may think, but not what God sees and what He truly knows, for there is no hiding what your true self is in the eyes of God. In conclusion, during suffering, we may think that God has abandoned us, or He's silent, but His presence is always there. So we must do everything in the glory of God to obey it over His law over man's. If man's law is inconsistent and being constantly reformed to please the people, while God's law is absolute and He's been consistent for all throughout time, it is clear what we should abide to. Amen.